Hi, this is a jazz world music composer, piano and synth performer, sound engineer and music producer, Louis Siciliano from Naples, Italy, but I live in LA, London, UK. And you are watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy the show.
What a fabulous, beautiful piece of music. Just stunning. Mwah, as they say. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome our very special guest on this week's show? Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible, the very talented, the very much in demand. We've been chasing them all over the world, trying to get hold of them and to join us on the show. And we've had to go to, I know it's hard to believe, but we've had to go to Rome, to his motherland, Italy, to finally get hold of this man and hear incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us as we welcome the wonderful Luis Siciliano.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you for
Did I
joining
pronounce
us.
your name correctly there?
Yeah, Luis Siciliano. It's a very Italian-American name.
Well, welcome to our show. So, Luis Siciliano was born in Naples in Italy in 1975. Is a jazz music world composer, pianist, synth performer, sound engineer, music producer. I mean, we've just had whilst everyone was sitting here waiting, we've had a look around his room at all this synthesizers and keyboards. It's mind-blowing. But so to start things off then, Luis, please tell our followers more about your childhood in Naples in Italy, your family, your introduction to jazz, and who are your main influences?
Yeah, I started very early, when I was 7 years old, because around me, I remember that was in that time a lot of music, because in Naples there is a big tradition in the music, you know, opera and classical music. Naples is also a sort of people that and this was for me a big inspiration. The sound from the North Africa, and in Naples there is a big NATO navy, structure. And the NATO, they have this big, so big community of soldiers, but a lot of musicians. And I remember that in that time they played in the club of the city, you know, with the music jazz is like a language. There is a pronunciation, you know. If you come from New York, you have a pronunciation. If you come from London, and the same is in the music. And in that time, you know, I tried to understand over this kind of influences. And yes, that was very, very so magic for me to live in that. You know, because I started to play very early in the club at 15 years old. And, you know, I remember my mother in the morning, hey, man, what's the time now? Mom, don't worry, it's okay. Tomorrow I will go to school, don't worry. And, you know, luckily, at my school, everything was okay with the professors, with everybody, you know, because music for me is everything, you know, is life.
Well, Luis, you talk about you know, actually performing when you were very young. What I was impressed with when I looked at your biography was that at age 17, you were enthralled by the music of Bill Evans, by Cecil Taylor, by Charlie Parker Jr., Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, Eric Dolphy, Miles Davis, Joe Henderson, and Charles Mingus, just to mention a few. Now, I thought I was the only fan of American free jazz pianist Cecil Taylor, who in 1959, he released a project called Looking Ahead with vibraphonist Earl Griffith. That was brought to my attention in 1973 during my years at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. Now, along with Cecil Taylor, I was introduced to Wayne Shorter's Weather Report, the iconic German fusion band Passport, Caldera, Ronnie Laws, Grover Washington Jr., and then, of course, Chick Corea. All of this 2 years before you were born. So my question to you was, and actually I love your list. For me, I would also have to add American pianist Keith Jarrett to that illustrious list of yours. But let me ask you this question. How did you become aware of these legends of jazz? And what was it about their music that struck such a deep chord in you as a teenager?
You know, I don't like the culture of the television, because today the people, they watch a lot, you know, trash culture, you know, because this is my point of view, of course. It's only a point of view. It's very personal. In that time in Italy, that was a show in television around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I came from the school and I saw to my grandmother, hey, grandmother, stop everything. There is this show. And this show, for the first time, you know, I enjoyed the first time Dizzy Gillespie with his band live. You know, Pat Metheny with the Lyle Mays, and you know, all these great musicians. And
I was at home, you know, with the stars in my eyes, you know. And I told to my grandma, these guys, they are not of this land, of this planet. They are aliens. You know, I was totally shocked from you know, for the power of the creative, you know, ideas and the approach. And of course, in that time, I asked to my father, hey, please, Dad, I would like to have that album, I would like to have that book. And if it's possible, in that time, everything was very different from today, because today you have YouTube, you have the internet, you have a lot of possibilities to understand. But in that time, it was not simple for a little guy in Naples, in Italy, you know. Why you don't sing a Neapolitan song? Why you don't sing opera? But, you know, yeah, Dizzy was for me, you know, when I won the first time that I listened.
Yes.
You know, in myself, I remember that, you know, that was a big revolution inside myself, a big revolution. And yeah, and after I remember the second album that my father gave me, it was the Modern Jazz Quarter. Number 3 was Bird, Charlie Parker, and after Charlie Parker, you know, you know, every week, I expanded my collection and my listening, because everything is very, very important, the listening for everybody. If there are some young guys, you know, right now with us, you know, listening is everything for me. Yeah.
Well, you know, you bring up Dizzy Gillespie. Roger and I actually are going to have one of his proteges on our show. We'll be interviewing, when is it again, Roger? Is it in another month?
Yeah.
Arturo Sandoval will be joining us. And of course, he and Dizzy Gillespie were very, very tight. So yeah, Dizzy Gillespie has touched the lives of many people around the world. So I more than understand what you're saying. Roger, go ahead.
And Pat Metheny has changed so many people's lives. You know, he changed my life. 1984 with Still Life Talking. That changed my style of it. I just blew me away. So totally get where you're coming from there. Now, this is the interesting bit, because growing up as a boy, you went to study composition at the conservatory, but you didn't really want to play the piano. Your relationship with music was mental, and you composed directly by writing to the staff to cheer people up, which is brilliant. Okay, you had family celebrations. You really had done. If you had to sacrifice anything, you pick up the guitar, because you play lots of instruments. Now, over the time that Kevin and myself have done these interviews, a lot of, and we won't name them, but a lot of artists, their parents went, you must learn the groundworks of piano first. That will give you the foundation. From there, you can diversify. And a lot of them reluctantly did this, all the rest of it. But then they realized that the piano was very, very important. So please tell our followers how your love changed from the piano to composition. And did you end up going back to the piano? Or is it still one of those, no, not for me?
You know, when I was very young, I had a little trauma with the father of my church. You know, he was a piano player, and he was a very good piano player, and he, you know, every day I was in this room with the grand coda piano. And, you know, I played. And that was for me a journey, you know, like, because when you play the grand piano, there is a very important thing, the power of the vibration. You can listen all the vibration of the strings, you know. And I was totally in trance. And the door on the back, he opened the door on the back and he told me, Lloyd, this is the last time that you play this piano. You don't touch this piano. Do you understand me? And for that time, for me, every time that the people asked me to play in public, also in conservatory, the teachers, the professors, they asked me, hey, Louis, why you don't play? No, I don't play in, and I develop my imagination, and after years, because I was 30 kilos, I was very fat, around 30 years, around 20, 29, 30 years, I was a big fat guy, and I discovered, I discovered the pleasure, the power of the body, because I was totally in the mind, because the music of the 20th century is something of very dangerous, because you are in a big plastic world. Is not a real world, because the real world is vibration. I asked some years ago to Wayne Shorter about this. He told me that he told me a beautiful story. Wayne told me this. A day, the big Charlie Parker was in a room, and he listened a guy that played the dodecaphonic music. After 5 minutes of listening, Bert started to play. And, a guy asked him, hey, Bert, what you play? I play the river, I play the sea, I play the sky, I play the trees, and I discover everything at 30 years old. And that was a big revolution in my life. And the piano and synthesizer, for me right now, they are tools for explain this synthesis of all my experiences, because I studied also Indian classical music, and I was conductor, and I'm very curious as a human being. I'm so curious, and right now I like to have this piece of paper, my piano and my synthesizer, for me like a piece of paper, when I can make a very fast sketch of a real-time sketch, and this is fantastic for me. Well, I'm so excited.
It comes across that way. We're getting that. And may I just first of all compliment you, because your English is 100 times better than my Italian. It really is. Your English is fabulous, and we're understanding everything you say, and the passion is coming across. What we're going to do now, we're going to momentarily just break from this interview, and we're going to play a track. Kevin, will you actually lead us into this, please?
Yes, actually, Roger, what we're going to do, we're going to play the title track, Louis, from one of the soundtracks that you created in 2019 for the film The Joy of Birth, and we're going to play that particular song to give our listeners an opportunity to hear some of the soundtracks that you've created, all of which has been a prologue to where we are today. So we're going to listen to that track, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to a very moving composition from the 2019 film, The Joy of Birth, by our guest, Mr. Louis Siciliano. Now, Louis, you have mentioned in your biography that all of your past accomplishments have been a prologue for the present, which fittingly brings us to this point in the interview where we'd like to talk to you about your amazing 2019 project, Folds of Time. Now, I love free jazz and Folds of Time with your collaborative Mumex trio of bassist Roberto Bellatala and drummer Mauro Salvatore have created something very special. The genesis of Folds of Time is found in your personal journey of self-awareness, meditation, and mindfulness, along with your composing prowess and your newly found joy of performing your own music. Now, you have mentioned the influences of the legendary pianist Elizabeth Sobart, along with her husband, who offered you encouragement and who unwaveringly supported your career. During the development and production of Folds of Time, you were mentored by the jazz icon Wayne Shorter, and you developed key friendships with the iconic producer Harry Maslin and the audio engineer guru Neil Dorfsman. Now, Louis, I'm a big fan of Wayne Shorter and Weather Report, and our viewers would love to hear about how impactful was it for you to be mentored by Wayne Shorter, and then secondly, more about your intuitive trio that you have and how the art of listening and spontaneity has taken this project to new heights.
Yeah, you know, Wayne is my superhero, you know. I spent a lot of time to understand his approach, you know, and after 25 years and after a life, you know, to listen Wayne, John Coltrane, and you know, you know, in the life is very important to believe in yourself, you know, in the art. And I composed a lot of music for films, for you know, theaters too. But every time I asked to myself, I'm ready for make something of a very deep. I am ready because I have a big respect for these great masters. You know, Charles Mingus, Bird, Dizzy Gillespie, you know, and I'm ready. Is it possible for me, a little human beings? I spent 20 years in analysis, psychoanalysis, with a psychoanalyst, you know, a psychologist, to come out to this tunnel, because for me it was a big tunnel, you know, and you know, after that I met Wayne for the first time that I met him. Inside myself, something changed, you know, because also the personal relationships, because he is a very, very simple man. You know, he is totally devoted to his art.
Yes.
And he inspired me totally. And after that meeting, something in myself changed, and everything changed around me, you know. And I you know, for 20 years I worked on my music meta language. The name is MAMEX, Music Multiverse Experience Exploration. Sorry, Music Multiverse Exploration. And you know, in that time, I finished this big work of 25 years, And I thought to myself, okay, right now you are ready for start your journey. Right now you are ready for make your music. And for me, is this is my truth. You know, right now I am in the music. You know, I don't know where, when, I don't know if the people likes, I don't know. But my approach is totally clear and clean. You know, I don't think, okay, I must sell this, I must make that because there is this trend, because no, it's my religion, is my life, is everything, you know, is like a practice, like a Buddhism practice. And this is my practice, you know.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the journey and travels. We've established that fact. We're very kindly, we're talking to you from your home in Rome, because you do share your life with London, United Kingdom, and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Taking it back a little bit, I read your bio and I was very fascinated when I read that. Of course, you went to live in New York City at one stage, and everyone thought that was where your career was going to go woof, it was going to take off. And you went to the Big Apple, great aspirations. This is where it's going to happen. And it didn't. You then moved to San Francisco. Let's go the other side of the coast. Let's go to San Francisco, where you studied, and you studied with the sound engineer, the wonderful Peter Miller, who was famous as the Beatles sound engineer. So how different was it trying to get that connection in the Big Apple, and then eventually San Francisco ticked all the boxes? What was the transition? How did it work for you?
Yeah, you know, I told you, I try to be very, very, you know, synthetic. I was in New York City. I was a guest of my cousin, because as a lot of Italians, we have a part of the family in United States, you know. And this cousin of mine, she was a great person, but she was she worked in the police department, and she was very, very strong, you know. In that time in Italy, I conducted a lot of symphonic orchestra. A lot of newspapers in Italy, they entitled on the newspaper the baby conductor of Italy. The baby conductor of Italy. I was 17 years old, you know.
Like a child prodigy, like a child prodigy.
Yeah. And my cousin in New York, look, you must make your career here. You are a great conductor. You must make this. You must make that. You know, she was very, very. You know, I remember a day, I wake up in this day, and I wrote on the paper, "Dear Gina, I want to make my music. Thank you for hospitality. I'm going." And that's it. You know, I bought a ticket for San Francisco, and you know, you can make this when you are young, when you are a young boy, you know.
Yeah.
Because
we refer to it as a sliding doors moment. You obviously had a sliding. You obviously the Big Apple wasn't going to be the, you know, and it takes. There's a lot of people who have tried to break the Big Apple and come away with it. It's fantastic. You went to San Francisco and then made it there and big. That's tremendous. Kevin.
Yeah, Louis, I'm going to drop back just a little bit. You had mentioned your book. Actually, it was released on December the 21st of 2020, which, oddly enough, it was a very historic date, because that was the year that Jupiter and Saturn aligned, which hadn't happened for 800 years. Now, I don't know whether it was an accident that you had your book released on that date, or whether it was just a coincidence, but that's a little strange. But the point that I wanted to make was that you wrote a book, and again, you've referenced it. It's called Music Multiverse Exploration, A New Cosmology of Sound. And your book was released in 60 countries around the world, all pre-ordered. Now,
Yes.
I've not had an opportunity to read your book, so I'm looking forward to that. But what I'm really interested in learning from you, you talked about how, you know, the universe is defined by quantum physics.
Yes.
And everything is interrelated. And of course, they try to explain everything on a large scale and also at, you know, at a microscope, at the molecular level as well. Now, you did an analysis of music. And for those of us who have played music, you were talking about the initial response to music was being impressed by its symmetry.
Yes.
And of course, we have middle C, and everything that's with middle C at the bottom up is your treble clef. And you talk about symmetry, from middle C down is your bass clef. And so there's a symmetry that exists between the way music is written from the standpoint of you've got all of the lines at the two steps, you've got the spaces, you've got harmonics, you've got whole notes and half notes. Now, being from the West, in knowing Western music and the way music is composed in the structure of our music, the question I wanted to ask you was, I would assume that the symmetry that we enjoy within Western music would also exist in other forms of music. Now, obviously, like music from the Orient is predicated on quarter steps. We're predicated on half steps and whole notes, half notes and whole notes. They actually have a note between our two half notes. They have quarter tones. So my question to you is, not to get too esoteric, but is the symmetry in other music, whether it's Indian music, whether it's Asian music, regardless of these other music genres that fall outside of the Western scope, does that symmetry still exist? I would assume that it does, but I'm curious. I know you played something like 35 instruments from around the world. Can you give us a little insight about, does that symmetry exist in all other forms of music?
You know, symmetry is the ground concept of all my research, because I started from the work of Olivier Messiaen and Jorge Ligeti, two great composers. And, you know, I remember that I spent a lot of time for understand the music of these great composers. And did you know something? Olivier Messiaen, he was very influenced by Indian music. This is important because, you know, our music, the music in general, live in a space. This space is Pythagorean, you know, and of course, if you listen the music, the dodecaphonic music, all the colors are gray, you know, are black and white, you know, music. You have not all the colors, because it's very important, the intervals and you know, the quality of these intervals, because every intervals, every structures are a kind of a color, a kind of a blue. You know, mice, the great mice, you know, and it's very, very important to understand this you know, concept of the colors, because you know, if you listen my work with the Mamex trio, we are in a free space, but there is something of very recognizable from the brain, because I'm working a lot on the intervals, and I try to create symmetric structures, you know. And if you only a minute, this is only a minute. You know, I'm working, I will send you this book to you, to both of you. I will send you, if you like, I will send you a copy of this. You know, I try to, the notation,
Yeah.
there is not the pentagram, you know?
Yes.
Mhm.
Everything is in the diagram, because this kind of system, it was the system that, you know, I inspired my research from Schillinger. Maybe you remember Schillinger and also Nicolas Slomyski, because they worked a lot on the symmetry. That's why John Coltrane spent all his life to research this kind of symmetries. If you speak with the friends of John Coltrane, they told you that all the time, also during his concerts, maybe he was in the backstage to play. But the play of John Coltrane, that was not a play for practice, that was research in this kind of symmetry, you know, is because it's a continuous work. You work continuously. That's why right now I'm very focalized on real-time composition, because you have a lot combination of this. That's why there is a big parallelism with the universe. You know, Pythagoras and the first writer of the Middle Age, like Boethius, they talk about the parallelism from music and mathematics, from music and astronomy, astrology, and you know, and that's why I love so much Sun Ra. Sun Ra was so great. He was, you know, not only a big showman, he was a big philosopher of the music. And because, like John Coltrane, he understood this. And, you know, right now, my research, all my research is in this direction, symmetries.
Wow, it's incredible you say that, because because time is now not on our side, unfortunately. But since you were a child, you were very fascinated by the music of Charlie Parker, modern jazz quartet, John Coltrane, Jimi Hendrix, Miles Davis, Bill Evans, Joe Henderson, and Wayne Shorter, etc., etc., etc. And that is paramount. Just talking to yourself, you can hear how these people have influenced you and guide you through the different things. It's incredible. Time is not our side. One last quick one from yourself, Kevin, sir.
No, all I was going to say was, as I listened to you, Louis, I was also thinking about, you go back to the classics, the grand masters. I mean, Johann Sebastian Bach probably was one of the biggest practitioner of symmetry in his music. And I'm certain that if you did a deep dive, or if you've done a deep dive on his music, you would also appreciate the symmetry that he's created within his large body of work. Well, Louis, the one thing I wanted to ask you, so if we know that you've been in Rome, you've been in LA, you're all over the world. Where are you going to land next? What do you have coming up? Do you have a concert or a program that you're going to be doing soon? And where will you be?
You know, I'm so excited because next year, January 6th, 2023, there will be a new chapter of my story, because I'm recording in this time with Randy Brecker on trumpet, Alex Acuna on percussion, and two friends of mine from my childhood, when I was young. They are two great Italian musicians, so great Italian musicians. Claudio Romano on the drums and Umberto Muselli on the tenor sax. And I played in this work all my analog synthesizers, only analog synthesizers. And the title is Ancient Cosmic Truths. Is a suite in 4 movements. And you know, I'm so excited to share with you and with all our friends around the world this new journey with these great musicians. You know, is so big the joy in my heart. in
Well,
this
we're
moment.
so looking forward to that. We're going to finish tonight's show off tonight with a track from Folds of Time, which we can't wait to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, it has been our immense pleasure to have you join us, sir, here on a show from Rome, from Italy. Thank you, sir, for taking time to come and join us.
Thank you so much.
Ladies
Have a
and
nice
gentlemen,
day.
Jazz Across the Pond. Kevin, one quick last one from yourself, sir.
Just, Louis, thank you so much for giving us your time, and slow down a little bit, brother. I mean, you're like a jet setter, but we're really looking forward to the new project, and can't wait to spin that on our respective shows. So congratulations. Ancient Cosmic Truth, that's going to be out in January of 2023. We're looking forward to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, from everybody here, the team, Jazz Across and Kevin himself, take care, look after yourself. Good night.